Hey, what's up guys, TotallyDubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review on the SteelSeries M800 mechanical keyboard. I'd like to thank SteelSeries for actually sending me it out. After previously reviewing the original Apex keyboard, I was very much intrigued to see how the M800 would compare. Now, the keyboard can be found for around £140 on Amazon.co.uk and $190 on Amazon USA. Links will be in the description below in case you're interested. So let's get into it. First of all, what you get with the keyboard. So you've got extra keys for Mac users in case if you want them. Then you've got these little rubber domes, which I'll get into in just a second, and you've got a manual, but the software should be downloaded online. Apart from that, you don't get anything else, which is a bit of a shame. I would have liked a wrist rest to be included, I would have liked a key puller to be included for cleaning a keyboard, and I would have liked different coloured keys, in other words, like WASD and the arrow keys to be coloured a little bit differently as an option rather than something that you have to have. As you can see, the keyboard is fully RGB lit, and each key is individually lit, so therefore you can customize it via the software, which I'll get into in just a second. So let's get into the build quality first. Now, the build quality of the keyboard is well done. I should mention it is terminated with two USB jacks, and it comes with a braided cable, and the USB jacks is one to power the keyboard, and the second one is to power the two USB slots which are over here. Two USB slots can be used for, I don't know, a flash drive or a mouse or anything like that, whatever you wish. Now, the keyboard has hardly any flex. There is a slight bit of it, but not too noticeable, and it's not a big deal because you're going to have most of the time the keyboard just lying down on the ground. It feels quite solidly built. I'm not a big fan of the finish, but it is good because it doesn't have any fingerprints. It's not fingerprint magnet, so that is nice, but it doesn't look that appealing to me. The keyboard is lit, as I said, but it is also lit on the sides. Hopefully I'm able to show you this, but on the sides over here you can see it is also lit, so it gives it a nice cool look as well. Now, the keyboard has certain functionalities I want to show you on the front, but before getting into that, just get into the back. Now, the back, as I said, the rubber little bits over here can come out, and it means that you can adjust it in terms of the height. It is a fixed height, either zero height or this little bit of height, which is not a problem because most of the time, even with those little plastic bits that you flip up, often break and or are same either one height or none. So it's nice that SteelSeries have adopted this. Other than that, there's nothing much else to see around the back. Now, going back to the front, I did say there's a few features I want to show you, and one of which is this little SteelSeries button over here. You press the SteelSeries button and it illuminates a few keys, and these few keys are different functions. Apart from the normal F1 to 12, you've also got media keys. So you've got volume up and down, mute, you can play and pause your music, go previous and next, and also you can adjust the backlight of the keyboard itself. You've also got a Windows key over here, which means that it gives you a Windows lock, which is very useful for gamers. What I like about it is just a quick press rather than another different button, and on top of that, with the lighting, it looks very cool because it singles out all the other keys whilst you press these. You can see there's a SteelSeries logo over here with an illumination, and on the left hand side you've got 6 macro keys, which I'll get into in just a second with the software. Again, just like the original Apex, you've got a big spacebar. Now, some people don't like it, but personally I quite like it because I find that when I was gaming, my hand was less like this, but more like that, and on top of that, it felt just more comfortable to use. When it comes to typing, I also found it very comfortable to type because I was often pressing with my thumb over here rather than doing this. So I just felt it was much more comfortable to use, and overall I do like this feature. It's not overly sized, whereas the Apex I felt was just a little bit bigger, which could cause problems when it comes to putting down your wrist. But overall I really like it for gaming and or typing. Now let's get onto the typing experience and my opinion on the switches themselves. So the switch that's being used over here is SteelSeries' QS1 switch. It's very much different from the Cherry MX switches, and in order to compare it to a Cherry MX switch, I would say the best comparison is the Cherry MX Red. Now, if I just turn off the keys over here, you can see a little bit of the key itself. It looks very much like a rubber dome keyboard. In other words, it doesn't feel or look like a mechanical switch, but it is one. You can see the LED is illuminated right from the center, and the key itself doesn't have any sort of like a stem. This means that you cannot put any Cherry MX keycaps you have on this keyboard in order to customize it further. Now, talking about the keys, I wasn't too happy with them because they're very light and very not say poorly built, but very thin plastic which is utilized. This is mainly due to the fact that they're very low profile keys. As you can see how low profile they are, and if I compare it to my key switch tester, you can see how big the MX switches are over here. This very much reminds me of the keys that can be found on, say, a laptop, or often Mac keyboards or whatever. A lot of people do like them. Personally, I'm not a big fan of them just because they're so thin, which means it's going to lead me on to my next point about the switches themselves. But you do get some inaccuracies when typing, because often your fingers will hit other keys. Now, this is very subjective, what I'm going to say right now, but it is my experiences, and I thought I should share them with you. So the keys themselves felt very soft to press. Really reminded me of a membrane keyboard, and as I said, like a Cherry MX Red. What I felt is when I was typing, I felt I was often hitting other keys because they're not very well spaced with each other, and on top of that, because they're very low profile, I felt I was sometimes hitting another key. It was a rare occurrence, but it was happening. When it came to gaming, on the other hand, I felt it was very comfortable, and again, I did feel that sometimes I was pressing another key accidentally, but it was very minimal considering the amount I was pressing. As I'm an FPS gamer, I don't press as much as RTS gamers that might do, so you might have a different experience there. But in terms of the overall feel of it, I was very much comfortable when gaming because they're very soft keys. Now, in terms of the sound, I'm going to do a sound test over here. I'm going to do the QS1 switch on the M800s, then go to the Cherry MX Reds, which is this, then go to Cherry MX Blues, and then go to Cherry MX Browns on my G710 Plus. So let's get to it. So now let's go on to the Cherry MX Reds that can be found on my key tester. MX Blues, and then my G710 Plus with MX Browns, but also has O-rings inside, so do bear that in mind. There we go. So hopefully that gives you a nice indication of how the two different keyboards and different switches sound, and you can make up your own mind of how it sounds, if it's good or bad. Personally, I have no preference, but it wasn't such a loud switch, which is always nice. It is a little bit quieter, I felt, in comparison to my G710 Plus, but I don't feel it was that much quieter than the MX Reds. It is still a little bit quieter, but not by a big margin. Now I'm going to get into its overall performance, and on top of that talk about GameSense. Now GameSense is really cool. Essentially what it does, it realizes when you're in a game, and that is when you play Dota 2, CSGO, or Minecraft, and essentially it just recognizes that you are playing a game, and therefore changes the layout of the keyboard. And you'll see what I mean in just a second, because I'm just launching out a game right now on CSGO, and what I've got on the on my profile on GameSense is that you've got different customizations. I've got ammo up here, I've got if I'm flashbanged over here, and I've got my armor and health over here. So I'm just going to show you this. I'll turn down the lights just a little bit so you guys can try and see the colors. And what I'm going to show you is that it's a very responsive and very cool keyboard. It's not changed right now, it's gone on the idle mode, and my game is just loading. I'm just going to go into game just a second now. As you can see, it's changed straight away with its layout. I'm just going to join a game, and there we go. So as I'm moving around, I shoot, and you can see my ammo decrease, and there we go. When I change from my gun to the knife in the game, then what happens is straight away, I can't even remember what, there we go. I hardly ever, because I use my mouse when changing weapons. But anyway, as you can see over here, I'm using my knife, then back to my gun, and it immediately changes, and it's very responsive. It's very cool, and it's a very nice feature to have, and I really like what SteelSeries have done with this. Obviously, this can be fully customized, and I'll show you on the software just now. So it's a very nice little feature and it's very cool, but is it something I would really use? Well, no, not at all. I can't see anyone realistically being looking at their keyboard whilst playing, especially in a game such as CSGO, FPS game. You need to be concentrating on the screen rather than your keyboard. It is a nice feature to have, and I like the fact that SteelSeries have actually done something with the keyboard and the actual software, but it's just a shame because I can't really see it being that much of a selling point. But it's something that you should note that is there. Now onto the software. So the software itself is good, and I really do like its integration. The one I'm using is SteelSeries 3.4.1 or 4.3, sorry. And in here you can see you've got GameSense, which you can customize like Counter-Strike, you can change Dota 2 settings and Minecraft, and all of this can be customized individually per key or per section. Very cool integration, and you know, you've got loads of different options. Now the actual keyboard itself has different options that you can change, be it from its key bindings to its illuminations. So starting with the key bindings, as you saw with the macros that I talked about before, you can change these. If I just click on them, you can see that you've got loads of different functions, and you also got a macro recorder in case you want to do it. What I felt which lacked on the software is the fact that I couldn't do a simple Windows 2 bind, which opens up my Outlook or my Chrome browser, which is something that I felt was a little bit lacking because it's something very basic. I might be missing it, or I might be able to do it with a macro, which I did try with a macro and it didn't work, but it's just something like that I felt was very basic in terms of a use. So those keys are not really made for media users as such, mainly made for people who are going to be gaming and using them, which is a little bit of a shame because there's so much possibilities you could have had with the macro key zone over here. Now in terms of the key bindings themselves, you can change all different keys to do whatever you want, and that's really cool. So it's a fully customizable, and it's very nice. And you got, again, the live preview button over here from SteelSeries, which allows you to really see in real time what's going on with your keyboard. Now the illuminations are very cool. You got all different types of settings. You got default settings which are created over here, and you can change it yourself in terms of how you want the keys to look. So for example, if I go on Web Flash and Lake and go on it, it brings out like a matrix-esque pattern, which is very, very cool. So it's just something, again, that looks nice, and via the software allows you all those options. I should even mention there's even games which are really cool. So you've even got something like a Snake. If I just open Snake, as you remember back on like Nokia phones, if I just go down, and you'll be able to see, if you press the enter button on the right hand side, it starts the game, and then you've got a snake, and you go and play Snake. So it's very simple, very cool, very nice, but again, ultimately utterly useless when it comes to actually using it in terms of an actual keyboard. But it's just something you should see, and the fact that what they've done with the software is very cool, you know, including GameSense, for example. The customization of the software is excellent, and I really like it, so I can't really criticize SteelSeries for that. So overall, guys, I quite like the keyboard. I really do like, in terms of its looks, its design. I would say, you know, it would look a little bit better if it was a different type of design, but in terms of functionalities go, you know, it's no fingerprints there, which is great. The software works really well, and the keys, well, that's the talking point. What do I think about the keys? Well, I like the keys in terms of they're soft, they're very easy to press, they remind me of Cherry MX switches, and the red switch in particular, and on top of that, you know, very useful for FPS gamers or RTS gamers out there. But it's not something that I would say is really special out there. And on top of that, its overall presentation, despite it being RGB and looking really cool and having all this cool software and everything, the simple basic having a wrist rest, as basic as that might sound, is an extra £10 cost, if not more, for a user. Why didn't SteelSeries include a little plastic bit over here which would be useful? For example, my G7 One Plus. I can't use this G7 One Plus without a wrist rest, it just doesn't feel the same. So simple things like that would have been nice to address. For its price, I think it is worth it considering it's an RGB keyboard. Sure, it's not using an MX switch, but I still think it is worth paying the money for what you get in terms of an overall package. In terms of just the keyboard itself, I wouldn't say it's that special, but for an overall package, I guess it's a really nice, nice offering from SteelSeries. Anyway guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this review. Hopefully I've covered everything. If you've got any questions, make sure you leave it down in the link in the description in the comments below. Do check out links in the description below in case you're interested in buying it, or if you want more information in terms of its specs. And definitely subscribe and like this video if you found it useful to your purchasing decision, or against your purchasing decision that you were going to buy and actually now you're not going to buy anymore. Anyway guys, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I've been Totally Dubbed. Take care. Bye bye.